Rules Profiles on the Types and Codes menu configures the rules for each borrower type and their relationship to each item in the library through its holdings codes. Think of this option as the lending profiles of your library. The rules determine which borrower type can check out what type of an item or whatever checkout period the overdue fines that will apply, etc. The Rules Link Manager, another option under Types and Codes, associates the holdings code, borrower type, to a rules profile. To get started, click Rules Profiles under the Types and Codes menu. To add a rules profile, click Add. In the Profile Name field, type a descriptive name for the new rules profile you are creating. Select a Due Date Intervals In option to be used in calculating the checkout period, renewal period, and finable units. In the Checkout Limit field, type the maximum number of items the associated holdings code and borrower type can have checked out at any one time. When the number of items limit is exceeded, a checkout block will occur in the borrower's account. If the borrower is not allowed to check out this type of item, enter 0. In the Checkout Period field, type the checkout period in days, hours, or minutes. This should correspond to what was selected for the due date intervals. Remember, the due date will fall on open days only for your library location. Open days are controlled by the calendar option. If the due date interval selected is days, select the Due Time checkbox. Set the recommended time 11:59 p.m. If hours or minutes were selected, any period less than 1 day, do not activate the due time. In the Renewal Period field, type the checkout period allowed for a renewal in days, hours, or minutes. This should correspond to what was selected in the due date intervals. The renewal time, or time, is calculated from the date or time renewed, not from the date or time the item was originally due. If the due date interval selected is days, select the Due Time checkbox. In the Number of Times an Item Can Be Renewed field, type the maximum number of times the item can be renewed by the associated borrower type. If the item should not be renewed at all, enter 0. In the Overdue Fines Calculated By drop-down list, select the method to be used in calculating overdue fines when you want the library's open-close dates or hours to be considered. In the Overdue Fine field, type the overdue fine to be charged for every day or finable unit. Type the amount in dollars and cents without a dollar sign. For every number of days setting determines the finable unit of time. The unit of time should correspond to the due date interval selection. If you selected days, then the number entered here should be in days. The Send Overdue Notices setting controls whether or not overdue notices are printed for the associated borrower type and holdings code. Do not select the checkbox if you want notices turned off. Select the Max Fine Per Transaction checkbox if you want to set the maximum fine per transaction for the associated borrower type and holdings code. Type the maximum fine amount that can be charged for an overdue item. Use dollar amounts. Select the Override Due Date checkbox and then type or click the calendar to set a fixed due date, which will override the due date normally calculated by the circulation rules. As a note, depending on your due date intervals in and overdue fines calculated by, settings will determine your unit of time. For example, Selecting any due date intervals N, along with any days option from the overdue fines calculated by drop-down list, the override grace period will display in single days from numbers 1 to 100. Selecting days as the due date intervals N and any periods option from the overdue fines calculated by drop-down list, the override grace period will display in days with multiples of the amount entered in the for every field. In this case, entering 7 will show 7, 14, 21, 28, and so on in units by days. Selecting hours or minutes as the due date intervals N and any periods option from the overdue fines calculated by drop-down list, the overdue grace period will display in hours or minutes with multiples of the amount entered in the for every field. In this case, entering 3 will show 3, 6, 9, and so on in units by hours. Select None to disable the override grace period. Select either or both Place Holds in Circ and PAC checkboxes to allow the associated borrower type to place requests from Circ or PAC. Select the Can Be Booked checkbox if the associated borrower type is allowed to place bookings. In the Booking Rental Charge field, type the amount to be charged for a booking rental. In the Block Hold Before Bookings field, type the period of time before the earliest picked date or time for the booked item when other borrowers are blocked from placing circulation requests on the booked title. If you have multiple profiles to set up, clear the Return to List checkbox. Once you save the profile you created, the form will clear to allow you to add another profile. You can also edit any existing profiles by clicking the Edit link. The Rules Profiles opens. Make any modifications and click Save. If you want to copy an existing rules profile, click Copy, and the form populates with the completed entries from the source profile. Type a profile name and you are ready to go, providing there are no other modifications needed. To delete a rules profile, click Delete from the profile you want to delete. A message asks, "Are you sure you want to delete this profile?" Click OK. The profile is removed from the list, followed by a confirmation message that your profile has been deleted. Click Done when you are finished with all the changes made in Rules Profiles. Once your profile is set up, assign the profile to the borrower type and holdings code through the Rules Link Manager.